Speaking with dramatic pauses, her kohl-lined, long-lashed, dancing eyes emphasized the sheer emotional toll she was reliving. Her first culprit was the media for creating a false narrative. She denied reading newspapers, but was still horrified by the contents of them. "I don't read them, but can you believe it?" She had never, she said, ever raised the issue of privacy. I've never talked about privacy. Yes, I did just get done suing the Mail on Sunday because of my privacy, but other than that, I've never talked about it, ever, once. No one's ever heard me talk about privacy. I could care less. It's everybody else who keeps hammering and jammering on about it. Not me, never. The bigoted media, as Harry said, had created a toxic environment of control and fear. Then she had to get into this whole thing. She says, well, it was the media that caused me to have thoughts of ending it all. Partly it was the media. See, because what had happened was I just didn't want to go on. How could I go on under that kind of environment? She says that her thoughts climaxed on the day that they were due to star at the Royal Albert Hall. And thinking about that night reminded her of a dark place that she had inhabited and how she had sat up all night considering ending it all and talking to Harry about the practicalities of such an event. And, we've done videos on this. I've done multiple videos on this whole thing. I won't belabor the point. You guys know how I feel about this. Bullshit. Verifying the events leading towards Meghan's thoughts of suicide is difficult. Pertinently, Harry and Meghan gave conflicting accounts of the saga. In the interview, they disagreed whether Meghan felt that way at night, in the morning, or both. And they did not agree on the number of days she felt that way. Neither could explain why Meghan sought help from an unqualified palace official rather than an experienced medical specialist. I'll never get tired of making this point. How in the world do you show up and say, well, then I asked the meter maid for help with my mental health and I couldn't get any help? It's like, why would you ask some rando to give you mental help? And why nobody called her on that and said, yeah, but why did you ask that person? What help were you expecting to receive? No. Don't ask any questions, Oprah, okay? I'm here to tell you. So, Harry also never bothered to identify which family member had neglected his wife. So, of course, that only leaves, their silence, and they knew this, was going to lead people to think, oh, it's the Queen. That's why he won't say it out loud. But that's the deduction we're supposed to be making here. He won't go right out and disregard her completely. But since he's not saying something, it was the Queen. Oprah failed to ask any follow-up questions about this whole questionable incident of the dark thoughts. And so her producers chose to broadcast the Sussex's inconsistent answers. Because Harry's saying one thing, she's saying another. But Harry goes on to tell of an incident which I just was like, Harry, the fact that you and Meghan are both trying to make this a thing, this is right up there with, and then they saw the word niggling. Harry says that these same dark thoughts apparently reoccurred again after Archie's birth. Harry said later in the show that one time when he came home from work in London, he found Meghan crying while breastfeeding Archie. It's like, what mother isn't there breastfeeding and, letting a tear or two leak out of her eyes? She's bleeding. There's milk pouring out everywhere. She's fat. Her stomach looks like a bowl full of jelly. She can't find time to shower yet. She's been up for 2 weeks straight. It is not the time to wonder why Meghan is crying. There can be a lot of times when you're wondering why someone's crying. Asking why a new mother might be shedding a tear or two over the devastation of her former self is not, you don't have to be in the throes of postpartum depression to be like, it's a little overwhelming. When Rachel had a baby on Friends, I don't remember it being this hard. Anyway, he did not tell his family about Meghan crying while breastfeeding, that the dark thoughts had returned. And he says, I was ashamed of admitting it to them. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't prepared for that. I went to a very dark place as well, if you want to be honest. But I wanted to be there for her. And I was terrified. Can you imagine? You just need a little help, and Harry's over there. He's wringing his hands. I was terrified. Okay, well, This whole picture is of utter dysfunction. There's Megan weeping and crying over the newborn as she breastfeeds him. There's Harry wringing his hands in the corner saying he's not prepared. But you're not prepared to deal with somebody's mental health crisis? Let's see what Tom Bauer has to say. Winfrey did not ask Harry, the patron of a mental health charity with 7 years' experience of receiving mental help for his own problems, living in a city with thousands of medical specialists, why, after witnessing his wife unsuccessfully seek help from a heartless human resource specialist in the palace, that he did little to seek specialist help. Okay. This is unbelievable. This BS is unbelievable. Megan's crying. We stayed up all night I was trying to talk her down, keep her from doing it. Then we had Archie. I walk in, she's crying all over the baby. But I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. I had no idea. I was completely and totally unprepared for this sort of event. Golly, I mean, God help the people in your charity if this is the way that you champion their distresses.